Hello everyone, today we'll be seeing how fast Chandelure can beat Pokemon Black in a solo run challenge. Let's get straight into the video. The first thing you may notice on my overlay is that, hey, it's looking a bit different. Yes it is, you are not wrong my friend. I have finally gotten Pokebite support for my Generation 5 overlays. For those of you wondering what Pokebite is, if you watch my Generation 1, 2, 3, or 4 videos, you know how I have the automatic updating overlay with my moveset, the PowerPoints, all that fun stuff? Well, for the longest time, I wanted to use it for Generation 5, but when Pokebite finally got support for Gen 5, I could only use it through the BizHawk emulator, and it made the emulator run so much slower it just wasn't worth it, so I never even made the change. But now, thanks to someone in Scott's Thoughts community known as Snowy, they were able to get a emulator working called Super Shucky. What this emulator does is essentially plays Generation 1 through Generation 5 at a very clean frame rate. I can get 240 frames per second almost consistently with Generation 5. Sometimes on the low end I end up getting around 220, but that's still not only way better than BizHawk, but now I can have Pokebite functionality. But I do want to point out a few changes. For starters, you may notice on the right hand side there's the level up in TM set. There's no enemy Pokemon stats or game time. I actually removed those off the Generation 5 overlay because I don't want to get into the complications of things, but it really did not end up looking that good for Generation 5 with how the game stores battle stuff. So I ended up just taking it out, but all the stuff on the left is here to stay. Held item, friendship, moves, PowerPoints, stats, EVs, returns effective power, my level, and my money. But anyway, with all that stuff out of the way, let's go over the stats. We have 60 HP, 55 attack, 90 defense, 145 special attack, 90 special defense, and 80 speed. And surprisingly enough, we're in the medium-slow level up group, so we're going to be gaining levels extraordinarily quickly. And when you combine that with our decent speed and very high special attack, we're not going to really have that many problems. The only thing that can really hold us back is our moveset. And there are some slight downsides to our moveset. Since we're a stone evolution because Lampent has to evolve with a Dusk Stone, we only get 4 level 1 moves: Smog, Confuse Ray, Flame Burst, and Hex. You may be wondering why Hex is a 50 power move and not a 65 power move. Well, in Generation 5 only, Hex is a 50 power move, so it's not really that great, but Flame Burst is pretty decent. And if we also take a quick look at our TM and HM section, you can see some very great moves like Calm Mind and Flamethrower. However, those moves are locked in the postgame and are therefore not accessible to us. Same thing with Psychic. Pretty much the only great TMs we do have access to are Solar Beam, Return, Shadow Ball, Fire Blast, Flame Charge, and Thief. Unfortunately, Energy Ball is locked in the post-game as well. We just don't get many moves, but once we get access to Fire Blast and Shadow Ball, it's really all the coverage we need. And as we continue through the early sections of the game and head to Striaton City, I'm going to go over our nature and ability. Our nature is going to be modest for extra special attack and less attack. This nature makes the most sense. I'm sure if we were playing a much faster game, like Pokemon Moon for example, we would probably go Timid Nature, which is plus speed minus attack, but Unova doesn't really have the fastest of Pokemon anyway, so this is an okay nature to use. And our ability is going to be Flame Body. This is sorta like the burn version for Static. If we get hit with a contact move, we have a 30% chance of burning the target. Our other choices were Flash Fire and Shadow Tag. You may be thinking, wait a minute, Shadow Tag is not this thing's hidden ability, that's Infiltrator. Well, that's sorta true. In Gen 5 only, it's Shadow Tag. It was actually impossible to get a Shadow Tag Chandelure, but then in Generation 6 they realized Shadow Tag isn't really a good ability for this thing, so they replaced it with Infiltrator. Honestly, I would probably not even run Infiltrator anyway, because all that really does is ignore Light Screen and Reflect. I mean, it might help with the end fight, but not really. The Zekrom does have Light Screen, but N only really uses that on the second turn of the fight, so it's not going to matter that much. And our hidden power typing is Hidden Power Dark, meaning we're not going to use it. I really want to remove the hidden power thing on my Gen 5 overlays because in Black and White 1, you have to have seen 115 Pokemon in order to get the TM for hidden power, which for a reasonable playthrough, if you fight a bunch of optionals, you should get it before N or Getsus, but to get it before the League is actually pretty dang difficult. I need to think of something else to go there. If you can think of some in-game information that could go there, leave it in the comments. I'd be interested to hear your opinion. Like for example, in my Fire Red and Leaf Green overlay, I don't have hidden power showing, but instead I have the Versus Seeker step counter. There's not really a Versus Seeker in this game, so it's not like that's going to help. Anyway, before we take on the first gym leader, I do knock out all of the trainers in the Dream Yard for quick experience before I go take on Chili. I always replace the grass starter in my runs for consistency, so we're always going to be facing Chili, which in my opinion is actually the hardest of the three because his Pansear has a move called Incinerate which burns your held berries, so all the Oran berries that Sharon gives you before this gym are essentially useless. And all three of them have the same Lillipup anyway that no bite, which is super effective. So let's get straight into the battle. Chili leads off with Lillipup, it's a one-shot with Flame Burst, and then the Pansear is going to be a simple two-shot with Hex. Okay, pretty easy, just as I expected. As soon as I clear out the Dream Yard, I head back to the Pokemon Center not to heal, but to buy some items. I buy 21 Repels, which was actually a mistake. I did not mean to buy that many Repels. And then I buy a few Antidotes, a few Paralyze Heals, and only 2 Super Potions because of how many Repels I bought. Whoops. And then before I leave, I can actually talk to this tree right here and get myself the Balm Mushroom. I can actually sell it to a woman inside of a little RV on Route 5, and she will buy the mushroom for $25,000. This is going to help out a lot for me to afford Fire Blast in Icarus City, which is $70,000. And instead of choosing to heal at the center as well, I can actually enter this little nursery house right here, talk to this lady, and get myself healed up. It's actually faster than talking to the Pokemon Center lady. And then right afterwards, this is the only mandatory double battle in the entire game. And you can see I have a Snivy here. Instead of replacing the grass starter, I essentially just hacked Chandelure into my party and just picked up the Snivy. It's so that way I don't have to use the universal randomizer to make a new ROM every time. I mean, this will slightly affect the results of previous runs because I'll have to catch 1 fewer Pokemon, but honestly, it's really not that big a deal anyway. I mean, Snivy does get cut, but so does all of the monkeys anyway. While I am inside Wellspring Cave, I can go ahead and catch myself a Roggenrola and a Woobat for HM usage later, and I could theoretically get the Thief TM in here if I wanted it, but our physical attack is so horrendously bad it's not even worth it. But as soon as we arrive into Nectarine City, we can effectively just go ahead and start fighting Lenora, but Lenora is going to be pretty difficult because her Herdier has Bite and her Watchog has Crunch. But what I can do is that since I already deposited my HM users in Nectarine City, I only have the Chandelure in my party, so if I lose to Lenora on her Watchog but I at least defeated the Herdier, I can accept a Blackout and keep the experience. So let's see how many tries it takes to defeat the most powerful gym leader in the game. She leads off with Herdier. I go ahead and use Flame Burst, boosted by the Charcoal, which I picked up in the city as well. Then as soon as her Watchog comes out, I can go ahead and knock it out with 2 Flame Bursts. It did end up hitting me, but it barely allowed me to survive. I came very close to dying. But fortunately for me, I do win on the first try. Normally in previous Pokemon games, Ghost types were good defensively early on because of the abundance of normal moves, but in Gen 5 it's bad because of the abundance of dark moves. Then I can talk to this nurse right here to heal up my Pokemon, saving myself a center trip, clear out the entirety of Pinwheel Forest, cross the Sky Arrow Bridge, and make our way to Castelia City. I am for sure going to have a very easy time at the gym here because Berg's ace, Levani, is 4 times weak to fire attacks. But before I fight the gym leader, I go inside this building across the street from Game Freak and get myself the TM for Rest. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using this move, but it's not that out of the way, and I pretty much just get it every single run just in case. And for some very weak Pokemon, you could also choose to enter the Battle Company on the main street and knock out a bunch of trainers that are in there for very good XP yields, but it's not going to be necessary for this Pokemon today. And you want to know why? Let me show you the Berg fight. I'm not even going to play an intro for him, he's going to be a joke. Look at this. Whirlipede, 1-shot. Dwebble, 1-shot. Levani, 1-shot after it uses Protect. And if this were black 2 and white 2, his Dwebble would have sturdy, making it a 2-shot, but to be fair, it would still be easy. Rival time. This is the first Bianca fight since the earlier routes on Route 2. This Bianca fight can be difficult depending on the Pokemon because she does have a Herdier that leads with Intimidate, but obviously Intimidate doesn't matter against a special attacker. The Charon fight, however, I would argue is more difficult because there is a Sandstorm on this route. But I will say though, I decided for some reason to do some training on these fishermen right here, and something bad ends up happening because these Basculin have Aqua Jet, the Sandstorm is slowly killing me, and I ended up taking a blackout here. But I never healed in Castalia, so I end up all the way back in Nackarine City. That was a very bad blackout. I mean, it's a good thing I already fought these two trainers in the Pinwheel Forest because I do plan to backtrack for the rare candy later, so I didn't take too long to get back here. But my god, it was annoying. I did decide to go back to the fisherman and exact my revenge. Okay, now let's fight Charon. He leads off with Pidove. It's a one-shot with Flame Burst, as well as his Pansage. Next up is the Liepard. It doesn't have Fake Out at this point, and even if it did, I'm immune to it. Then I can just use Hex to two-shot the Pignite. It does heal up a decent bit with a Citrus Berry, but that's not going to prevent the two-shot, thankfully. And now with the rivals defeated, we can now enter Nimbasa City. The fourth gym leader here is Elisa. She can be difficult for some Pokemon, but the main reason I'm worried about her is because her Emolgas have 64 speed, and the Zebstrika has 76 speed. We are not going to outspeed those Pokemon anytime soon, but who knows? Maybe I'm just overreacting. Maybe we don't need the extra speed. Even if Elisa ends up being difficult, at least the end fight wasn't. I just one-shot his entire team without taking any damage. You know what? That actually made me a bit extra confident. Why don't we go ahead and see if we can take on Elisa. Elisa leads off with her first of two Emolgas. It outspeeds and goes for Volt Switch and only does 18 damage. And then the next one that comes out one-shots. She Volt Switches again into Zebstrika, and the Zebstrika barely lives. But then she uses a Hyper Potion, and the next Flame Burst actually knocks it out, which was pretty surprising. Then the final Emolga comes back out, it hits me with an attack, I barely survive at 15 hit points remaining, and I defeat her second Emolga and defeat Elisa for the fourth gym badge. Okay, granted, that was pretty dang close, but I did win, and that's all that matters. Clay is essentially what I like to call the last difficult gym leader, because Skyla is an absolute joke in this game, and Bryson doesn't even count as a gym leader. Drayden is only really difficult in a rare Blue Moon, so essentially, Clay is the last mandatory gym leader we gotta worry about. The main thing is we are going to be weak to ground moves, but his ace is weak to fire attacks, so I think essentially we do have a type advantage over him. But if we allow the Krokorok to survive for more than one turn, it could get off either a Torment, making the fight a lot harder than it needs to be, or it can use Swagger and confuse us. And you may be wondering, why not just go into the fight with a Person Berry? You see, there are Pokemon Rangers that do give Person Berries, but the first one isn't available until after Clay. The only other way to get a Person Berry is by catching a wild Timpole in the Pinwheel Forest exterior, which you could do for a Surf user if you don't follow the starter rules that I do, and you just pick the starter where the rival will have the hardest starter for you to fight. If you don't end up getting the Pampor Monkey, you could just catch a Timpole and have a 1 in 2 odds of getting a Person Berry, but in the end, it might just be better to just bank on the 50-50 odds of not hitting yourself. So why don't we go see if Clay's going to end up being that bad at all. Clay leads off with his Krokorok. I go ahead and use Flame Burst and it one-shots. Okay, that actually kind of surprised me. Then the Palpitoad is a 2-shot with Hex, and all it did was use Aqua Ring. And then Flame Burst on the Excadrill. Okay, this thing is absolutely destroying the game right now. I am very impressed. And just before we leave Driftveil City, we do have to take on Bianca again. But you want to know what happens? I end up getting put to sleep by the Musharna. I never end up waking up. And then the Musharna actually knocks out my entire team and I have to black out. That was awful. Like, that Bianca fight can normally be hard sometimes, but Sleep in Generation 5 is not that great. It only goes up to a maximum of 3 turns, and Hypnosis is inaccurate to begin with. Man, that Musharna, what does it remind me of? It kind of reminds me of Generation 2 Chuck's Poliwrath. It's either the most difficult thing you've ever faced, or an absolute joke. There is no in between. And looking back at these results, I remember I told Axu Kairisora my results, and he apparently has played Chandelure in this game before. He mentioned to me that that was the one fight where I should have equipped the Expert Belt. You can pick up the Expert Belt in the Driftveil City Farmers Market. It boosts the power of super effective moves by 20%, and Hex was barely not one-shotting the Musharna. The Expert Belt would have made a difference, but whoops. It's effectively going to be smooth sailing from here on out though, because inside the Chargestone Cave we can go ahead and pick ourselves up the Lucky Egg. This will boost our XP yields by 50%, and when you combine that with the medium slow level up group, we are going to be out leveling a lot of opponents. Especially since in the basement floors you got to do a giant Team Plasma gauntlet. And then as soon as that gauntlet is done, we have to head to the Celestial Tower on Route 7 and ring the bell, which is what you all should totally do, by the way. And as soon as the bell is rung, we have to go defeat Skyla, but I'm not even going to play an intro for her, because I want you to see just how bad this gym leader fight is. Skyla leads off with her Swoobat. It does hit Acrobatics, doing a decent bit of damage, and then the Swanna is going to be a 2-shot with Hex, but all it does is set up Aqua Ring like an idiot. Then I can one-shot her final Pokemon, Unpheasant, for a 1-hit. If you've been paying attention to my moveset has remained the exact same this entire run. I have not once taught a new move yet. Not even Return because of how bad our attack is. Then, inside of Twist Mountain, after I take on Charon again with no issues, I can head inside to Twist Mountain and then pick myself up a winter exclusive rare candy, as well as the TM for Substitute. The Substitute TM is also a winter exclusive item. I usually like to get this for either the N or the Getsus fight. It does have a niche use on the Grimsley fight to block Sand Attack, but that's about it. Inside the Icarus City Pokemon Center is when we can finally, for the first time in this run, get a new move. I can sell a bunch of nuggets to this guy for $10,000 each, and then I can talk to this bottom vendor, and for $70,000, I will purchase myself the TM for Fire Blast. I'm not going to replace Flame Burst because Fire Blast only has 5 power points, and Flame Burst is still going to be decent coverage because here's the thing, I am still over leveled compared to everything else, and especially compared to the lost actor Bryson. This guy is not a gym leader, look at this. He has straight up one of the worst teams I've ever seen, and even if you're running something weak to ice, you can equip the free Yachi Berry Iris gives you in Castelia, and Bryson's AI actually sees the berry and will actively refuse to use its only ice move Frost Breath because the AI doesn't know what auto crit moves are. So him actively trying to cheat is actually making the fight worse for him. Yeah, I just wanted to point that out. And now with Bryson defeated, we gotta go through Dragon Spiral Tower and the Relic Castle. Just a bunch of Team Plasma fights, nothing interesting, except inside the Relic Castle I can get the Shadow Ball TM. I will immediately teach this move in the place of Hex. And with all of that Team Plasma stuff done, I have to go take on Bianca one last time in front of the Tube Line Bridge. This is straight up the hardest battle against Bianca in the entire game. I'm not just saying that because of the higher levels either. She leads off with Stoutland, which does get off Intimidate, but that doesn't matter for a special attacker. The Samurott can be pretty tough, and Aqua Jet does do some decent damage. But, not like it's gonna matter, I have Shadow Ball. And, you saw nothing. Okay, yeah, scratch that. We do get our first reset on the final Bianca fight because of a torrent-boosted Aqua Jet. I could not believe that happened. That is actually kind of nuts. We do beat Bianca on the second attempt, and as we go through the Tube Line Bridge, we could get the TM for Flame Charge if we wanted it, but not only is our physical attack bad like I keep mentioning, we really don't need the extra speed. So I'm just going to ignore it. And then as soon as I enter Route 9, we're going to enter the shopping mall and buy some vitamins. And today's vitamin of the day is calcium. Here's the thing though, in Unova games, you can never buy carbos or protein. Look at our EVs in the bottom left. That's just insane. The only vitamins you could ever really buy are calcium, or irons and zincs if you need them for a specific fight. But do you all remember when I was picking up those nuggets and the balm mushroom and all that other fun stuff? That was to not only afford Fire Blast, but also a bunch of calcium as well on the side. And with access to 100 special attack EVs, as well as Shadow Ball and Fire Blast, I can take out a lot of the trainers in the Dragon Gym pretty easily. The dinos though are pretty annoying because they do resist all of my moves, but hopefully the extra levels will do. At least I have Shadow Ball for Hugo's Druddigan, so I can't get hit with Rough Skin and Night Slash. But you know what? We haven't played a gym leader intro since Clay, but I'm not really sure if Drayden deserves one, but I think just to break up the lack of intros, let's go ahead and play him one, because why not? Drayden leads off with Fracture. It is a one-shot with Shadow Ball. Next up is the Druddigan. It is a one-shot with Shadow Ball. I get to level 57. Then the Haxorus is a one-shot. I did not need to play that intro. I just wanted to change things up a little bit. Before we enter Victory Road and then the Pokemon League, we have our one final battle with Charon. However though, the Charon fight here really isn't that good either. His Unpheasant usually likes to go for Taunt, essentially preventing setup moves from functioning. However though, I don't even have setup moves anyway. I can just straight up just full brute force his entire team. Inside of Victory Road, we can actually pass by this little pond right here, and using the Surf HM on our Pampor, we can actually go ahead and pick ourselves up one final rare candy. There is another final rare candy inside En's Castle, but I don't think we're going to need that candy. We can go through the rest of Victory Road and enter the Pokemon League. I heal up at the center, buy some full restores, and now we need to go take on the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. The first member of the Elite Four I take on is Chantal, the Ghost type user. She leads off with Cofagrigus. Normally I would use Substitute to block Will-O-Wisp, which I do today, but then I'm like, oh wait a minute, I'm immune to burn. So as soon as I realize that, I one-shot sweep her entire team with Shadow Ball. Although her Jellicent does get off a Curse Body on me, so I can't use Shadow Ball on the Chandelure, and because of that, I cannot one-shot it, and I end up having to black out since I did not save here because I expected her team to be a series of one-shots, but no, I had to get Curse Bodied. Great. If y'all saw my Jellicent stream earlier in the week, that ability is great when I use it, but I hate it when Chantal uses it. On the second attempt after I get back to her, she doesn't provide any resets. Next up is the Psychic type Elite Four member, Caitlyn. This fight is going to play the exact same way as the Chantal fight, just minus the blackout obviously. Everything is a one hit with Shadow Ball. Next up is the Fighting type Elite Four member, Marshall. He leads off with Throw. I decided to use a Substitute to see if I could tank a Bulldoze, but surprisingly I couldn't. Then on the Sock, because of that Substitute damage, there was a great chance Stone Edge was going to murder me, but guess what? I end up living at 18 hit points remaining. It's not like it matters though. I still have to rely on the inaccuracies of Fire Blast, and I actually end up missing Fire Blast on the Conkeldurr, and I end up getting knocked out, giving me my first actual reset in the league. Looking back at this, I should have just used Shadow Ball. I'm over leveled, it should be fine. Besides, I haven't even used my candies yet. I do get a couple more resets because I'm trying to knock out the Throw without it using Bulldoze on me. It took until 3 resets in to realize, oh wait, I should just use Fire Blast on it, and as soon as I did that, I knock it out. Then I can take out the rest of his team with Shadow Ball. Next up is the Dark type Elite Four member, Grimsley. I could use a Substitute to block Sand Attack, but I decided to actually play it risky and not even bother doing that. However though, I went for Flame Burst instead of Fire Blast, which was a mistake, and that does allow the Scrafty to use a Sand Attack, and I'm gonna have to play the rest of the fight without missing, and somehow, I don't end up missing any hits. I definitely was playing way too ballsy there. And now with the Elite Four defeated, we should be fighting Alder, but nope, N has already beat him, so instead of the final 5 trainers, we have to take on one additional trainer. We got to take on N as the champion of the region, and we have to take on Getsus at the very end. There is a rare candy inside N's castle, but like I mentioned earlier, we're not going to need it. I did use all of my rare candies first to get to level 72. This level will be more than enough. But before I go take on N and Getsus, I realized I forgot something. So I talked to this Team Plasma Grunt to teleport back to the Pokemon League. I enter the Celestial Tower, and I go ahead and get myself the Spell Tag. You may be wondering, why do I need the Spell Tag? Can't I just use the Expert Bell? I actually need the Spell Tag for one very specific range. I need Spell Tag boosted Shadow Ball in order to guarantee that I get rid of the Zekrom. Plus it helps with other ranges in general, but it's more important for N Zekrom. So let's go ahead and actually finish this run, starting with N. He leads off with his Zekrom. I go ahead and use Shadow Ball right away, and will it one-shot? And the answer is no. I got a very bad range there. Not once, but twice. But that's fine though, I still win. Next up is the Caracosta. I go for Flame Burst, dealing like a quarter, but then it ends up knocking me out because obviously I'm weak to Stone Edge. I should have grabbed Will-O-Wisp as well, because Will-O-Wisp definitely would have helped with Caracosta. I do actually go back into the fight with that N's Castle rare candy to get to level 73. The damage rounding threshold should make it more likely that I knock it out, and I still don't knock it out. Like, come on, dude. But that's fine though. I do end up taking care of the Caracosta just fine, and once the Caracosta goes down, the rest of N's Pokemon don't even stand a chance. Let's just go beat Getsus now and be done. Getsus leads off with Kofagrigus. I go ahead and set up a Substitute just to block Toxic. Alright, and with Substitute up, the rest of his team doesn't stand a chance. I can just one-shot almost everything he sends out. His Hydreigon though, however, does resist all of my moves, but that's fine though, that's what the Substitute is for. That way I can afford to take the two-shot. I just hit it with Flame Burst followed by Fire Blast, and as soon as I do that, I can knock out his Electros and clock in, with a real time of 1 hour, 20 minutes, and 23 seconds, with 3 resets, 4 blackouts at level 74, with a game time after the credits of 4 hours and 44 minutes. I will actively say this right now, this was not a good playthrough for me. I should have done another playthrough, but I just didn't really have enough time to do another playthrough. I can always do another one if I want to, but I think how I would improve this run is 1. Pick up the Will-O-Wisp TM and the Spell Tag while I'm in the Celestial Tower the first time. And second of all, don't fight those fishermen. It really was not worth it. It's not like it would have made the Charon fight any better. But either way, it doesn't really matter though. This run is still pretty respectable. And if we take a look at the leaderboards compared to the other Pokemon I've played so far, out of the grand total of 31 Pokemon we've played so far, Chandelure got right in the middle, 14th place overall. It did do better than Jellicent and Nidoking. It did do worse than Levani though, but if I were to give this thing a proper chance, I think this thing could rival the likes of Terrakion. Chandelure is just a very good Pokemon in general. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this video, even though I didn't play the absolute best. I think my Jellicent run from the stream was probably executed better. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more, and be sure to follow me on my socials or support the channel through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to the patch files for all the backboard Pokemon we do on stream, including all the Mega Evolutions, as well as members-only videos such as unedited formats and re-ranks. Next week, we're going to be playing a shorter game. We're going to be going back to Pokemon Yellow, where I will be playing Arcanine and Ninetales, 2 of the major fire types in this region. I think one of them is going to be very great, the other one not so much. You want to know which? Well, you'll just have to find out. Thank y'all for stopping by, and I'll see you all in the next video.